Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sasha Beatty, and I am Senior Counsel at the Association of Prosecuting Attorneys. APA is a private nonprofit located in Washington, D.C., serving prosecutors as well as their law enforcement and community partners. Thank you for joining this Case Backlog webinar today. This project is supported by the Stand Together Trust, and APA is very appreciative of their financial assistance and commitment to improving the justice system. Points of view or opinions in this presentation are those of the presenters and do not necessarily represent the official position or policies of the Stand Together Trust or the Association of Prosecuting Attorneys. Now, just some very quick housekeeping. If you have a question for our presenters today, please use the Q&A widget that's typically found at the bottom of your screen. We will hold questions until the end of the presentation, at which time our presenters will address them. If in the meantime you are having any technical difficulties like audio or video issues, or you have any other questions, please pop into the chat box, which is also typically found at the bottom of your screen, and one of us will assist you with any quality issues you may be encountering. So I am absolutely thrilled today to welcome our presenters from the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office today. I and the team at APA had the pleasure of working with Julie Higgins and her colleagues at the office throughout the course of the Case Backlog project, and it was fantastic to see the progress that their office has made. We have a great webinar ahead of us, and so Julie, at this time, I'm going to pass it to you to kick off your presentation.
Thank you, Sasha. Again, I'm Julie Higgins. I'm an assistant district attorney here at the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office. We are thankful for being part of this project with the APA, as it allowed our office to have a very important conversation about digital evidence and how we can best manage and handle digital evidence going forward. I'm joined here this afternoon by several of my colleagues from the Suffolk County DA's office, and I'm going to just turn to my colleague to my right to introduce and let everyone know what unit we're in.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brandon Diavolo. I'm an assistant district attorney in the General Felony Unit, which is a unit for the Superior Court.
And I'm Harry Siegel, the Chief Information Technology Officer.
I'm Sharon Riley. I'm a digital evidence analyst and data engineer.
My name is Frances Chappelle. I'm a paralegal in the homicide unit.
So as for our office, we are located in Boston, Massachusetts. We serve the Boston, Chelsea, Revere, and Winthrop communities. Our office consists of 11 district courts and 1 superior court. In Massachusetts, in our district courts, we actually have some felonies that we can go forward with. As for our office right now, we're just shy of about 300 employees. We are very understaffed. I believe like a typical staffing levels, we should be closer to about 350. So we are fairly understaffed at this time, but hopefully those numbers are going to get back up. And this summer, as we often do, we have a very robust intern program from all the local colleges and universities we have in our area. We have roughly 90 interns that are working with us this summer in the Superior Court, as well as our district courts. As for our discussion with all of you this afternoon about digital evidence management, we're going to talk to you in 3 different groups. We're going to start first with the perspective from ADAs, and then we're going to talk from the perspective of the IT department, and then finish it off with the case management. So first off, with digital evidence management and challenges that we face sort of from the perspective of an ADA, as I'm sure many of you can relate to, the caseload volume that we have is just humongous. And as digital evidence becomes much more common in pretty much all of our cases, the volume has definitely grown to just huge amounts. It's very hard to manage all of this evidence. It is difficult to even know where the items are. Many times if someone leaves the office, we might not know where did they store their digital evidence. Was it on a OneDrive link? Was it on a thumb drive? Was it in a physical case file? Has it even been scanned? As I'm sure many other jurisdictions deal with too, we'll have older cases that are flipped by our superior court or our reviewing court, and all of a sudden a case that went to trial 15 years ago has to now go to trial in 2024, and none of the things that were used in the first trial were scanned or in any digital format. So we have to spend all this time getting things sort of more up to date. We, just like every other jurisdiction, we've got a lot of discovery obligations that the courts are imposing on us. And a big issue that we have, it's file formats, that we get digital evidence, video in so many different formats. It's so hard to keep track. My last trial, or actually 2 trials ago in April, a lot of video evidence. The homicide happened out on a public street. So we had video from the city, from businesses, from residences, and every video was in a different format. So you needed a different player to be able to utilize each video. And it was really, really difficult to sort of manage all of that. And I wonder if Franny has anything she wanted to add about sort of those challenges that we face with the different file formats.
Of course. So we work very, very closely with our multimedia department to convert all of the video into easily accessible formats. So typically an MP3, MP4 format for audio and video respectively. But that takes time, that takes manpower, and our multimedia department is already at its max. And we just find that putting all of this on them is so much work. It is so time consuming. And so many of the players are out of date. Each camera has a different application. And then we have to go on a search to find an up-to-date application that will support it, that will be playable in a courtroom. And that just presents many, many difficulties.
There's also, as defense attorneys change, the last case that I just tried earlier this month, by the time the case went to trial, I was on to the 3rd defense attorney. And it's not just dealing with those discovery issues and the different players with one attorney, but many times it's multiple attorneys. We often will use OneDrive to share digital evidence, and I find OneDrive is not very successful with large volumes, especially like large video files. I find it crashes. The last trial, or 2 trials ago, during the trial, I was trying to send stuff to defense counsel because he couldn't locate things, and the video files were so large, he wasn't able to get it by OneDrive, and everything had to be sort of sent to him by a physical thumb drive. And Brandon, do you have similar stories from your cases?
Yes, so our office got OneDrive in about 2022, I believe, maybe end of 2021. A lot of people jumped on it because it was an opportunity to quickly turn discovery over to defense attorneys, especially in the district court where the caseloads are so heavy. Some of our busier district courts like Dorchester and Roxbury, a lot of the ADAs are averaging about 500 cases each. And with the district courts, there's also a lot of turnover on those. So keeping track of all that has been difficult in and of itself. I know as people were phasing out of the courts when I was acting as supervisor at Dorchester, we were having the people share us their accounts before they left, but that's kind of a means to an end, because in 5 years or so, when that link is no longer accessible to anybody, if that's the only spot where that discovery exists, then that's going to be a problem down the line. We're still very heavily using CDs with detectives. Some detectives have upgraded to thumb drives if we're lucky, but with OneDrive itself, it is very dependent on our network, the speeds of our network, and if we're trying to save time by having a detective upload what they have for us without having to come in person, because of how dense the city is and trying to save them that trip, that's now where that discovery lives outside of the detective's folder, which creates its own problems, because if we need to access it for grand jury, trial, motions, we now have to download all that stuff, which adds a bigger burden on our network. If it's during business hours, it's going to take a long time to download. I know for myself, I'm typically preparing my exhibits for grand jury at home, just because my network isn't being bogged down by a bunch of people, and I can put everything on the thumb drives that I need to. But again, it's an added step to an already tedious process.
Franny, did you have other thoughts on the digital evidence and different obstacles we face with it?
Actually, piggybacking off of what Brandon had said, even this morning I had tried to download a very, very small amount of documents from OneDrive, and it took, I think it was 45 minutes, and it was 15 very small PDFs. So it was just a struggle. But yep, storage issues, server issues, the amount of time it takes to download anything from OneDrive, from a hard drive. It's just dependent on the day, dependent on how the servers are feeling. And then of course, storage space just in general, because like you said, we're facing huge caseloads with so much digital evidence. And it bogs down our servers, it takes up space. So it's just always a new adventure.
Other things it'll do too, which I'm sure anyone who's used OneDrive probably has noticed, sometimes when you're uploading something to it, sometimes it's good at telling you if something doesn't upload properly, sometimes it's not. And you might not realize until maybe a month before trial that that folder didn't fully upload the OneDrive that you sent to counsel, and now you're in a rush and a panic because they're not able to access the discovery in preparation for trial, which is our burden to turn it over, but it just creates an unnecessary panic, which we're kind of forced to now double check, triple check that everything did upload, which when you have thousands and thousands of files, especially with all these different file formats, and with certain video surveillance, you might have 100 to 200 file types to play one video because of how it's encoded, which adds just another layer into that mess.
Why don't we segue into the IT challenges? And Harry, do you want to talk to us
Yes.
about some of the challenges you've seen from that perspective?
Yes, so I'm going to go to the next slide. And for the most part, each of these line items talk about and touches upon the issues that Brandon, Julie, and Franny has brought up. And so some of it will sound redundant, but I just wanted to share my thoughts on each. So when it comes to discovery, they come in all different formats, of course, and they all have its limitations. When it comes to, just the process of downloading and re-uploading and resharing, it's, I understand it's very time consuming. It puts a lot of, and then when you think about the growth in the, on how much evidence are coming in, I can tell you years ago that, the way we consume data from a file server capacity, when you're looking to buy a server, it's, you plan for what you have and for future growth. I think in this office, I don't think a lot of people anticipated the exponential growth and how much of that volume was going to eat up our servers. By doing that, though, what that meant was that we're constantly running out of disk space that Franny mentioned. We would have to expand that space quickly. We would then, because of the retention policies in homicide, we have to keep them for almost forever. I think it is forever. So we have to back it up. And we have a different organization, the MDAA, that handles the backups, and they have to scope out projects as well. And the rate in which we were consuming data, they couldn't keep up with the backups, right? So we had breakdowns just across the board. I'm happy to say that we addressed some of those things. Our backups are back up, and we've got newer file servers, but I can't say that every office across our state had that luxury of upgrading all of their file servers to support all of the district attorney's offices, right? We happen to have the money and we wanted to do it. So we're lucky in that state, but that really doesn't mean that we're in good shape, because some of the same issues of downloading and the delays, the time-consuming tasks that take place are still there.
We also have the challenge, Harry, of the location of the district courts versus the superior court, because our IT department is located with our downtown office in Boston, but we have 11 neighborhood courts that have to be supported by your unit that are geographically in different locations. And tell us about some of those issues.
Well, it's multi-layered because we have audio-visual equipment that my team handles. So, for some of these things, it's not as easy to support when you need to physically be there. most of our courtrooms that are here in Superior, where these big trials are happening. So we always have staff on site to try to respond. But to your point about just the 11 offices, needs are needs. It doesn't really matter if you have a password reset or just anything in general. The problems run the gamut. But when it comes to the challenges, I think Brandon hit it on with us, and it may not be challenges for some of you, but it's a challenge for us. We are part of a bigger net. We're part of a state network. Our bandwidth, our security policies, like all the district attorney's offices in Massachusetts, we don't dictate that. We abide by them. That doesn't make it easy. We have to. Franny was mentioning about the multimedia department that we have. They have a faster circuit. We dump a lot of our requests to them because they have a network that allows them to download stuff quicker. They are a multimedia department, so they need the speed. They need to be able to download the content, edit the content, redistribute the content. They are a key part of our success. But again, as Franny mentioned, it's a big load when you're dealing with an office of 300 attorneys. So a lot of this is very, very challenging. Everyone's doing the best they can. Doing the best we can doesn't mean that that is working. Doing the best we can that doesn't help the download length, the length of time it takes to download something. So go ahead.
What about challenges with our agencies we deal with on a regular basis? For example, we get a lot of discovery from the local law enforcement agencies. We get a lot of discovery from, other like stores, like how within the IT department have you been able to communicate, let's say we have the Boston Police Department, we have the Massachusetts State Police, we have the separate law enforcement agencies with the other communities we also serve, and that presents a lot of IT issues as well.
Yes, the IT issues don't really come from our partners. They come from our end users who are dealing with our partners. So they may have some difficulty, and then we are called in, whether it is an outdated player, whether it's a source that came in. So I think the IT does get a lot of these calls, but the end users are also, they become savvy themselves, and they sort of figure things out because of the need and the speed in which they have to do things. So sometimes they bypass IT. So not everything comes to IT, not everything ends up in multimedia. People just figure things out, and sometimes whatever they figure out might not always be like the best solution, but it's just something that allowed them to get through their trials.
And and a good example of one of those issues that we ran into with kind of local law enforcement. So with Boston Police, we have rights to access their body worn camera and now city cameras through evidence.com, which is Axon. Mass State Police, when they got their body cam, they did not have any negotiations as far as us having rights to a portal to access it, where we were kind of spoiled with evidence.com, where we're able to view it, download it if need be, but we could share it directly with the defense attorneys from there, which helped keep the burden kind of off our systems without having to download all that body worn camera. And then when we saw Massachusetts State Police get their body worn camera, all of a sudden, all the ADAs in the county were now downloading 17 to 100 gigabytes worth of video, and then having to, once they downloaded it, then upload it to OneDrive so they could share it with defense attorneys, because it was too big to put on a thumb drive or a CD with kind of the resources that we had. So that was something that we were looking for, a good way to bypass that as a kind of a solution to a bigger problem.
I would say that this issue is widespread. I was in an IT directors meeting even today, and these topics do come up. They come up a lot. And I would tell you that it came up because there was a discovery that had to happen. It was 12 terabytes that had to be, that needed to be turned over to defense. 12 terabytes, I mean, that's, to buy that was $420, right? $420. Somebody has to pay for that. Sometimes it's us, sometimes it's the defense. And so that's alarming to me when that's one example. Not that they don't always come that large, but we will run into situations like that. And then we have to scramble to figure out how we're going to do this. From an IT perspective and from the attorney's perspective, I think it's a huge challenge. We have been looking at solutions and stuff that which we'll share later on in this presentation. But as far as IT is concerned, I just feel like I feel it when I hear the pain and suffering of the business, because the IT departments are responsible to try and make it easier for the business, and it's not easy to do.
And I hope this sort of really demonstrates how being a part of this project really forced our office to have these conversations, to have these discussions, to sort of talk to each other. Before we joined this project with the APA, I was in regular contact with IT, but I think I'm in even more regular contact with IT, knowing that we're a part of this project. We've got to discuss sort of, digital evidence and what next steps we can do to make things better for everyone. So I think that's been a really valuable part of being a part of this project that we're so thankful for. Are we ready to go on to case management?
Yes.
Yes,
So
Sharon,
I'm
do you wanna
gonna
talk to
Sure.
us?
So right now, we use a product called Damien by Equivant for our case management. If anyone out there is familiar with it, it is outdated. We got it, I believe we went live in 2004. And for those of you who haven't seen it, if you think of that wonderful game Minesweeper, it looks very similar to that, a lot of little icons like that. It's not super user friendly. It could take one of our admins, 10 minutes to enter a case from the start. And that's being pretty repetitive with a lot of fields. So it can be extremely time consuming.
Which is also unfortunate because when you're in the court and you are actually handling a matter as an ADA in the courtroom, you cannot update the case management system. You've got to document it with paper and pen, and then you've got to forward that on to who is going to be updating our Damien system, which just involves more steps, more people, and more opportunity for errors.
And with that too, so the district court where there's a lot more cases kind of being called, what would happen is the case would get called, we would write on the folder the notes of what happened, the next court date. You would then, if it was a victim case, it would then go to the advocates who would then update their own system, which is usually a spreadsheet. They would then put down their notes for calling the victim. It would then go to an admin who would then update it in Damien. And the thing with Damien is you're updating a date. You're not putting notes that are on that file. So those notes that usually are very important notes aren't saved anywhere other than that physical file, which becomes a big problem when you have 4,000 cases at one courthouse and you're looking for that one file that the guys were moving a warrant from 10 years ago. And just on the not being user-friendly, an example of how not user-friendly Damien is, the enter button is not enter, F8 is enter, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's lacking in a lot of ways. And you have extreme limitations with its interoperability, really with any external system. One also major issue is that we do have an end of life for the server that it is compatible with. So we do have that end date, and we are also limited in the fact that it's statewide. So all of our district attorney's offices in Massachusetts, we all use Damien, we all use slightly different versions, and we all need to come to an agreement for what we want to use next.
So with Damien, I'll add here on the panel, I think I'm actually the only person that was with the office when we got Damien. I'm lucky, I've been with our office since 2000, and Sharon was right that we got Damien right around 2004. And I can tell you, I have used Damien 0 times. I find Damien, I will have an admin or a legal assistant update my cases in Damien. But in terms of me going to Damien and actually getting helpful information from Damien, it just does not serve that purpose. It never did, unfortunately. And I would say that's probably the consensus with, pretty much all of us in the office in the 2 decades that we've had it.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were to ask any ADA here, oh, Damien, oh, it's a thing. And it's, we do use it a lot for reporting features, but it just doesn't have the capability that these newer products have. Game changing, to say the least.
So we found as an office, as we started to look to how will we better manage digital evidence, we obviously also had to have a conversation about case management because they are connected, they are linked together. And I would encourage any other office that's also trying to really think about digital evidence management, you've got to also have the question about case management. So as we've been having these discussions as a part of this project with the APA, we've been trying to figure out what are our next steps, what's going to look good for our office. And we, in terms of digital evidence, we looked at a bunch of different vendors, and I would encourage any office that is looking to explore what options are out there, explore different vendors. And with that, I'm just going to say, if anyone's a big fan of Damien, I don't want us to just bad talk Damien in terms of a case management. I'm sure Damien also, maybe if updated, could serve some purposes. So it's not all bad.
It's not all bad. It's just, it's not what our office needs anymore. We need more capability and being able to, right now, yes, Damien will have the capability to connect to Nice Justice, which is the solution that we are gonna go with.
Yeah.
They will be able to talk, but we want to make sure that we have kind of more validation processes for our case management, so that way all the information is correct in one system, and then all the information is going to be correct with Nice Justice. So we have that kind of cross-platform.
And then hopefully get rid of paper folders one day.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Eventually.
So as we look, at Nice Justice as a way to better manage our digital evidence, we definitely, again, had to look at different vendors. What is out there? Budget. All the programs are going to cost a lot of money. And so as our office started to have these discussions, we've had a committee that started as soon as we joined the APA project. And it's a committee that has thankfully grown. We've got, ADAs that are a part of that discussion, IT, we've got admins and legal assistants, we've got digital evidence or data analysts, and she has so many
Whatever it
titles, I
is.
can't keep track. We also have people from different units. I'm in homicide, as you heard from Brandon, he's in general felony. We're an office like many offices where we also have sexual assaults. We have, child pornography. And, as you're dealing with child pornography cases, you're also dealing with a lot of digital evidence, but also evidence that should not be readily available to a lot of people for obvious reasons. Same with sexual assaults. So we had to start to really explore what's going to work for us. And as our office is also looking to, do we want to save stuff in a cloud platform? And Harry, do you want to talk to us about looking at NICE, knowing sort of how the evidence is stored? What types of things did you think about in that regard?
Yeah, so one of the things is really about storage, right? Where is this data living? And also, how strong is the backups? So all that comes into play. The beauty about when we were looking at Nice Justice was that it's unlimited storage. They handle all the backups, and it's Azure, Microsoft is the platform. So it's all bundled into the cost of their solution. It gives, as you can see on the slide, it handles all of those items in one solution. It's not it's not a solution that fixes everything, but it fixes a lot. And at least that's what we at this point in the game, as we evaluate, that it seems like it has a lot of promise. We had talked about the media types that come in all different flavors. Well, if you import any video type, with whatever codecs it's in, it's going to convert it for you automatically into an MPEG-4. You can play it. Anyone can play any video. The few that it can't, their engineers will look into it and try to fix it and make it playable. So they support 90% of all video formats that are out there. It does tracking and with audits. It's secure with with its logins and who gets to see what and what they're not supposed to see. So all in all, it takes the stress off of IT because it's a platform that everyone goes to that's actually not on premise. It's a cloud service. You could be in the courtroom and you want to look at something and you have Wi-Fi or you have cell service. You don't have to be on a VPN. You don't have to jump on a computer on a network. You'll be able to see it after you've authenticated. So the list goes on and on about what the possibilities are with it. But we're excited and we're forging ahead with trying to take the next steps.
And
Oh, please go ahead.
I think another big thing that Nice Justice is going to offer our office too, both from an ADA standpoint, I think even from a budget standpoint, is, and I'm sure any prosecutors on this meeting can attest to, when you're listening to interviews and how timely those interviews can be, jail calls and hours of jail calls, Nice Justice has a system that's built into where it'll transcribe those files. And they're obviously not going to be transcribed to where you can put that transcript in a court file, but it at least will take that workload down from listening to hours of audio to where you can scroll through it, look for the buzzwords, then listen to it and see, okay, this is actually what I was looking for. And now I know this one file of these 1,000 files is the one I need to actually get professionally transcribed, which I think is going to be huge, especially for domestic violence type cases and sexual assault cases where the abuser is typically reaching out to the victim of the case, and we're looking for forfeiture by wrongdoing where they're intimidating the person not to come to court. And reading through those transcripts is going to be, I think, a game changer for that, where it's not going to be taking up so many hours of either a prosecutor's time, an intern's time, or an admin's time, or a paralegal's time.
I found with Nice Justice, what I like is just knowing there's going to be one location where all the digital evidence is stored. Because my reality right now with all of my indicted and unindicted homicides is I have for any case multiple locations where stuff is stored. Some is on a hard drive, some is on a flash drive, and different folders on the computer. And it will be heaven when I sort of have one location where I know I can go for that one case, as opposed to trying to figure out where everything is. I know, Franny, did you have thoughts on what you're looking forward to with Nice Justice?
I think it gives a lot of independence to the admins, the paralegals, the attorneys to really use it in any way that they want. They have the transcription services. They also have translation services. You can search through entire caseloads for those buzzwords, and it'll pull up every single case file that has those buzzwords in it. It's just, there's going to be so many shortcuts to things like the buzzwords, where you would have to go through a physical file, search through every single folder, every single page yourself, read it all. Even a digital file, you would have to go through every single folder, look at every single PDF, and it's very, very time consuming. So my hope is just it cuts some of that time down. It allows us to stitch together videos, stitch together audio, and take that load off of our multimedia department, in our IT department. I mean, the video conversion alone is just magnificent. I've had AEAs stand over me because I was the only person who had a specific application, and they had to watch over my shoulder because they didn't have it on their computer and we didn't know how to install it on their computer. So it's just very exciting.
And I think another benefit too, so I think that's a quality of life improvement just in and of itself, but I think having a situation where everything does live in one place. A lot of us, because of how dense Suffolk County is, a lot of us live on the outskirts of Suffolk County. And while it might be 3 miles away or 10 miles away, that 3 miles is like a 45-minute drive. And having, with Nice Justice, where it's a web portal, a lot more people are going to be able to say, oh, I don't have to drive to the office because that stuff's on this hard drive. I have it right here. I can just log into it and do this 5-minute task instead of turning into like a 2-hour affair of driving there, back, being in the office and all that stuff.
And I think another time saver, you heard us talk about how the challenges of sending and, sending out discovery to defense, there's a portal. So we can have the defense go through this portal and, oh, hey, look, here's all the discovery that was sent. And then you also have, that track record of, oh, they've opened it, they've downloaded it, we know that they've gotten it. And then there's also another portal where they can, we can have, different departments actually send the video that way, or other digital evidence. You don't have to physically go get that copy. And in an ideal world, we're going to have a lovely connection. So that can just be sent.
Yes, so on that, Sharon, is that we're looking for like the partners, and where we would have content like evidence.com from the Boston Police Department to tie into this system, so that the effort of downloading, re-uploading, resharing, it all comes from one location. So it really transfers over one time. And then when we share it for our attorneys and our admins, we just say, here it is. After we've identified what they want, we say, here it is. And again, once we share it, like what Sharon said, it's all traceable. You can go back in history and find out what happened to that content and who got it, who sent it, who got it.
And they do, just kind of a nerd out moment, they do hash verify the digital evidence. So, proof that, well, once it's in there, it's not being the original format is not being altered.
As our office started to explore, the different solutions, we found it very helpful to talk to other offices that also have the different products, to just sort of see what they like about it, what they dislike about it, realizing that each office is a little different in their own different ways. And I think we often had a conversation that trying to figure out what digital evidence management system we might go with, or what case management system we might go with. It's like buying a new car. There's really no perfect new car out there, and everyone, sort of might feel certain things are more important than the next. Like I might think, gotta have heated seats. I need heated seats. And Sharon might be like, you don't need heated seats. But, everyone is sort of a little different. And I think, it's important to find what's going to work for you, what's going to work for your office. And to do that, it's really, really, really important to have a collective discussion, not just within your office, but as we've been having these meetings, we've even invited members from the agencies that we deal with, law enforcement. Unfortunately, in terms of the trial court and having the trial court be involved, not so much, which is fine. It's fine. Like every community has, a different political climate. And, I think we sort of realized if we waited for the other agencies that we're working with on a regular basis to be on board with us, we'll just be waiting forever. And we as an office needed to sort of take charge and just say, we need a solution. We need a solution yesterday. We're losing way too many quality people from our office. The case backlog, not just from COVID, but because of the volume of our cases, it's just so great. There had to be something out there to make things a little bit better. And for us, we found Nice Justice, and we keep the conversation going to upgrade the case management. And so, ready for our next steps? I think so. What is next? So we did have Nice Justice actually came to our office, and they did do a live presentation last year. They did that right around the time that we were exploring other vendors. Some other vendors came in person. Some other vendors sort of did a virtual presentation. We also had some systems that do both case management and digital evidence. And we sort of looked at that with deciding we're going forward with Nice Justice. We're going to do another virtual demonstration with them because we realize as an office, for this to be a success, we've got to do a lot of work on the front end. We've got to make sure that when Nice Justice arrives, we're ready for it. And it's not the type of product that you just, here it is and go. You've got to sort of have certain things in place so it's going to be a success. With getting a new system in place, it's also helping us as an office to really look at our discovery obligations, to look at our discovery protocols. As our office started to have the conversation about digital evidence management and a case management system, prosecutors were asked approximately how much time do you spend each week doing discovery and dealing with digital evidence. And on an average, prosecutors were saying about 75% of our time, we are doing discovery. The reality is many of us are here easily outside normal hours. I would say, a normal weekend for me, I am here a minimum of one weekend day a week. If I'm on trial, I'm obviously here both Saturdays and Sundays. But even I see a holiday coming and I often get excited like, oh, the court will be closed, but I can be in my office and get stuff done. And like this past, on Wednesday, Juneteenth, I was here in the office. I spent the entire day, 12 hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. dealing with digital discovery. And so, that's our reality, but it's, as we look to Nice Justice, again, it's encouraging our conversation to have that helpful discussion about discovery obligations. We are also going to be hiring a project manager to help our office implement. And obviously, we've got to get the funding. In addition to a project manager, we're going to have a digital evidence system coordinator. And does someone want to sort of touch upon the vision for those positions?
Yeah, sure. I can tell you this about that. When we spoke to other clients and we asked them how do you like the product and what are some of the things that you've learned from it, going into it. And what we've learned is that it's a system that a lot of people are going to use. They're going to need support. They're going to need help. They're going to need training. There could be a bug that needs to be addressed that was discovered. All of these things have to be handled by a person or a department. It's like a single point of contact to help us when it's deployed. It just has a higher chance of success because these questions are going to come. The support is going to be needed. And when we heard that, we weren't going to be blinded by it and say, okay, let's just buy the system, install it, and then hope that everything works out. No. We wanted it to succeed the best way possible. If we had the support discussed and adopted here, then the success, the level of success we expect if we did these things.
And I think with that too, part of like the necessity of a project manager and a digital evidence system coordinator is this is going to be a massive change to everyone's typical workflow. And there's going to be growing pains, but we think long-term it'll be worth it. But I'm sure, as everyone is also aware of, if there's too many growing pains, people are just going to go back to what they're used to. And that's the last thing that we want from that, because long-term, this is going to have so many added benefits to quality of life, to proper discovery protocols, and maintaining everything. But if we just put this system out there and someone's like, oh, it's running a little slow, I'm going to go back to using OneDrive because that's what I know works. And we don't get the buy-in from the team, then we're not really accomplishing anything. And then now the budget that we're spending to this kind of is going to nothing.
Well, I think OneDrive is a good example that we got OneDrive. It was not mandatory. I very quickly just got frustrated with OneDrive, finding it's not good at handling large files. I use it, but in comparison to some of my colleagues, I definitely use it much less than some people in other units. And so sort of similar with getting nice justice or whatever format you might go with, you've got to get everyone on board. And so, we are doing sort of like a marketing of this is what we're doing. Let's all get on board. Again, it's not going to be perfect for everyone, but if we work at it, it's going to make things so much better. I think there's some people, like the amount of time that they're going to gain, they're going to be able to put towards other things that really matter. I think of a prosecutor spending 75% of his or her time doing just discovery. Like, imagine if that time could actually be spent prepping witnesses, reading reports, learning about an expert witness. It's just going to make us so much more, powerful in the courtroom and make things so much better for our entire office, and most importantly, the community that we serve. We also, as we look to what next, the case management system. We've got Damien right now. You all know how we feel about Damien, but we're looking at perhaps another solution there. And Sharon, do you want to talk to us about what we're doing ongoing as we look at case management?
Yeah, so we're looking at case management, but again, that's kind of on a whole state level. So we're a part of a committee that has representatives from all the other counties in Massachusetts, and we're in process of watching the demos, figuring out how we're going to fund it, and trying to figure out how do we choose the best one.
Yes, wonderful. Does anyone have anything else to add about what's next? Hopefully better use of time. That's our goal. Because I think so again, I've been with the office since 2000. When I started, digital evidence was a Polaroid photo. And if you had a Polaroid in your case file, you were, whoa. This is the big leagues. I've got a Polaroid. And there was only one copy of the Polaroid. And now I think of where we are in 2024 and what digital evidence is today. Even when our cases go to trial, the last trial I did that concluded earlier this month, it was from 2021, which isn't that long ago. But in terms of digital evidence, a case from 2021 and you look at digital evidence that we have now in 2024, it's amazing how just those 3 years, it's significantly different. But it's something I think we all have to just be very mindful of, because digital evidence is just going to continue to grow. And I think inevitably it's going to grow at a faster rate than even we can predict, at this time. Thank you so much. So Sasha, does anyone have any questions for us?
Well, thank you all. So at this time, we'd love to open it up to questions. If anyone has any, feel free to hit the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, or the chat box if that's easier for you. But maybe while we wait for some of those questions to come in, I love that you guys have talked on so many different ways that you've telegraphed and messaged to your staff and external stakeholders as well, how these changes are coming about. I'd love to hear, we talked primarily about your eDiscovery journey. I'd love to hear from you all about any sort of additional case backlog challenges that you've been facing, and what you've kind of started to implement as far as additional efforts. And to give an example, I know that we've talked throughout this project, you guys have examined your onboarding, offboarding process, and thinking about ways to revamp that. And I know that there's some other efforts as well. I'd love if you could maybe discuss some of those as well.
So sort of outside just specific to digital evidence, in terms of case backlog, one significant issue we have here in Suffolk County is our judges rotate on a regular basis. Our judges rotate out of criminal sessions or out of trial sessions every 3 to 6 months. And inevitably it causes cases to be continued, because especially if a case is scheduled to go to trial during a judge's last week, that judge might be in that session, that case might get continued because of just court congestion. And so one thing that our office has tried to do that's sort of been a tangent discussion to all of this has been better communication with the court. We in Suffolk County, we have a position, Raj, which is a regional administrative justice. We're fortunate that our current Raj, who just took the position earlier this year, is actually our former first assistant. So it's someone that is very familiar to a lot of us in our office. And most importantly, he understands the work that we do. And he's been, very good with keeping a conversation going. So I think in terms of looking at case backlog issues, looking at those aspects, you've got to have a conversation. And not every conversation is going to be a pleasant conversation. Not every conversation is going to end the way you want it to end. A conversation with the trial court is not necessarily going to end with the trial court saying, yes, DA's office, we're going to do what you would like us to do. That's probably not going to happen, but it's at least trying to have a conversation, sort of sharing with each other what needs are to see, is there sort of a way to sort of revamp. I know like what Suffolk County did, this is going back a few years, but specific to homicides, because we definitely a significant case backlog with homicides, especially impacted by COVID. I would say during COVID, homicides and child rapes were the ones that were most severely backlogged. With homicide trials, we were roughly 150 to close to 200 backlog trials. We still have a very significant backlog with homicide trials that we're working our way through. But as we work our way through that, some of our solutions, we have a homicide session, which is one session at our courthouse that is assigned for all homicides once a case has been arraigned in the Superior Court, so that one session is sort of managing those cases, where those cases are going to go to trial, in hopes that they're going to be moving forward, headed towards trial in a more timely manner. Did anyone else have other things about case backlogs?
I think just generally being more organized helps. I find just my short time in Superior Court, the faster we can get discovery to the defense attorneys, the faster a case can either resolve or go to its trial date, and you're not moving the trial date 2 or 3 times. Where if you're running into these issues, in this case with digital evidence, and it just gives a defense attorney more and more reasons to get a continuance if that's what they feel they need, because of a delay on our part due to us being disorganized or something along those lines. So I think that's helping out a lot. I also think what the Raj has also done is he's made it so the first pretrial hearing of every case, both parties are going up and talking with a judge and lobbying it and seeing if it's something that can be resolved or should be resolved. And what helps that happen is if we are in a position where everything has been turned over, so the defense attorney has had an opportunity to talk to their client about what the case against them truly is, which leads to what I think I've been seeing a lot more resolutions because of that.
We also have implemented trial readiness dates, which are dates depending on the type of case, the nature of the charges, either a few weeks or maybe even 2 or 3 months before the trial, to actually have the case called before the judge and have judge, defense counsel, prosecutors actually have a meaningful conversation about whether or not the case is actually trial ready. Or are we going to show up on the first day of trial and defense counsel is going to say, I need to file a motion to suppress. And we haven't gotten that motion to suppress filed yet and get the case continued. With the trial readiness date, you were hopeful that those conversations happen so that when a case is actually on for trial, it's in a posture that it's ready to go to trial. And that's going to help with the backlog as well.
Yes, thank you so much for expanding on some of the other efforts that you all have been undertaking. It looks like we have another question from the audience. What platforms aside from NICE did you look into? And maybe in expanding and building off of that, you can kind of share a little bit about why they weren't necessarily a good fit or how it helped you sort of redirect to NICE.
Well, when it comes to the platforms, I think it started with what are the solutions first? What are the products out there first? What do they provide? What does it look like? you know, when we're looking at other products, I mean, Julie was joking with me as we were looking at one of the live demos, and she just said, you know, nice Justice looked like a Mercedes versus like some of these other products. It just on the interface portion alone, it just wasn't looking very nice. There's so many different criteria when we're measuring it. Now, then it comes to the platform, because some of these solutions, you can have an on-premise solution or you can have a cloud solution. Some of these are driven by the manufacturer themselves or the solution provider. They say they want to use Azure. They might want to, another vendor might want to use AWS. Another vendor might say we're an on-prem only. Most of them are cloud-based now. But so we don't really dictate that. We just want to make sure that whatever solution that we pick is compliant with CJIS and some of the other law enforcement agencies.
And we did look at two products where they tried to do both. They tried to be case management and they tried to do digital evidence management. And for our heavy need for digital evidence, we just didn't feel like that they were anywhere near the standard that we wanted that Nice Justice reached.
And this isn't just one case management system. It was everything.
It was two.
Yeah, like a lot of these case management companies, they might offer a digital evidence feature, and they are nowhere close to what a lot of the features that Nice Justice provides.
And I think with Nice Justice too, something that stood out is they're a company that's been around for a while, but there's a company that also plans to continue to grow their platform, which I think is significant, that we're not going to end up in a situation where 20 years down the line, it hasn't been updated at all. So I think that's been key. So even talking to the current district attorney's offices that are implementing it or getting ready to implement it, it's adjusted as they've learned with these other district attorney's offices. I think a big thing that they have that I'm sure everyone is seeing the technology boom around it is machine learning and stuff along those lines, where they have kind of hints of that in their software, where in their demo, they kind of explained they were looking for a white van. They typed in white van and it showed across the entire platform, every video clip that had a white van. And in that example, I think it was California. It was a California case where they actually solved like a carjacking because of that. So I think that was like stuff like that, I think is key, where we don't just want a system that solves the problems of today, but I think Harry said it earlier, we want a system that will solve the problems of tomorrow too.
I think, again, a lot of products that are out there are going to serve certain offices. You know, I think you've got to really decide, what does your office need? Because by no means do we want to say certain products are good and certain products are bad. It's really not that simple. Again, I think it's just important for each individual office to have a conversation and decide, like, what do we need? What's going to work for us? And, you know, start to have that conversation. And so even, products that we looked at that we didn't go with, I would encourage other offices still look at them. Just because we didn't go with them doesn't mean they're not going to work for other offices. Because I have to say, it was impressive to see what was out there, because when we started this project with the APA, I had no idea about all the different options that were out there. And so, thank you again to the APA for letting us be a part of this project, so that we had these discussions within our office, and most importantly, start to learn about all of these wonderful, programs that are out there that can really make this job, this work that we do, a lot more manageable.
That's great. Thank you all for sharing. I know that we started 1 minute late, so I'll just throw this last short question in there. What server does Nice Justice use, for example, Azure or AWS?
What server?
Azure.
It's Azure. That's the platform, but it's basically a software that they sell, right? They create the interface, and
they use I know they use like Azure Government.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think they said they do like multiple redundancies. So
yeah.
their Azure servers are through like 3 different server farms.
Got it.
Obviously an important conversation, because due to the nature of the material we would be putting out, on that server. We want to make sure it's protected. And we definitely, as we're having the conversations, want to make sure, what security platforms are in place. And if we store something somewhere, who has access to it? And who's going to be able to tamper it? Who's going to be able to adjust it? Who's going to be able to corrupt it? Definitely important conversations to have. Thank you, everyone, so much.
So just a huge thank you to you all again. I know that there are a lot of prosecutors out there and other offices who are just dealing with this e-discovery concern and the pressure points that are associated with that. So just to get some concrete examples of how you all navigated this process is so incredibly useful. So just thank you all for your time. To our audience, this presentation was recorded, and so the video as well as any corresponding materials will be made available publicly on APA's website as well as our YouTube channel within 3 to 5 business days. So just keep an eye out for that. And that concludes our webinar today. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Yay, Celtics.